A pleasant day to everyone. Before we formally begin our program, we request our audiences to turn off their microphones throughout the whole webinar and only turn it on if you are told to do so. Moreover, turning your cameras on will be highly appreciated.
To get started, we ask everyone who will post or tweet about our seminar to add hashtag 17th founding anniversary and hashtag education beyond borders so we can see what you think and feel about our Founders Week celebration. Without further ado, I'm Ray Carriago of 12 Yung Stato.
And Aussie Basalio at your service, here as your masters of the ceremony for today's online webinar titled Sa Lente ng Kasaysayan, Let's Shout Time on Current Events.
Sounds enticing, Aussie. To proceed, we call on Andrea Puzon to lead us for our opening prayer, followed by Mr. Ronald Valderosa for his opening remarks.
Let us invoke the presence of the Almighty.
For those who can, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord of all, be Lord of our school. We ask for your presence to be with us as we gather today. May we be aware of your Lordship, that we serve you, your love, and your children. Inspire our thoughts, discussions, and ideas as we seek to work together to ensure that our school is your school. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Saint Dominic de Guzman, be eager in the service of God.
Let us now welcome Sir Ronald Balderosa for the welcome remarks.
Okay, before I start. Okay, so once again,
I think Sir Ronald is
pag,
experiencing technical difficulties. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ray. In my end, I think he is a
Um,
bit laggy or choppy.
yes, I think so. In my end, too, Sir Ronald is not yet speaking. So, okay, sir.
hello, can you hear me
Hello, sir.
clearly?
Yes, we can now hear you
Okay,
clearly po.
okay. So once again, good morning, everyone. So again, we are very happy and glad to have this morning a very distinguished resource speaker, a history professor, and also a columnist from the Manila Times who will be introduced properly later. So I would like to request our students to please listen carefully to all the discussions because it is very important for us to learn the lessons of history, to be clarified about what's happened in the past, for us to be able to understand what is happening now in the present and for us to be able to prepare for our future. You know, the question right now is that with all the issues that abound us, with our government, with our society, with this pandemic, with all the calamities, with all the policies of the government, that I think our the most important thing for us is to really get it from the right people, the information from the right people. With the advent of the technology and the social media, we are very much um, bounded by a lot of information. But the question is, which one is true? Which is fake news? Alin ba talaga ang totoo? Alin ba ang chismis lang? So again, it is now time for us to learn really from the experts and learn the real things, the true happenings in our society for us to be able to become more critical and more selective of the information that we get from the social media or from the internet itself. So once again, sit back, relax, and learn from our resource speaker. Again, a pleasant morning to everyone. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much, Sir Ronald, for your speech. What an inspiring start. So, Ray, ano namang expectations mo sa webinar natin this morning?
Alam mo, si I already feel this webinar is not for the faint of heart and the narrow-minded. Kung may natutunan ako sa nakaraang 2 taon na pagiging yung student natin, it's being open to new ideas and tearing down the wrong ones that have been taught to us in the past or the ones that we have learned in the past. Lalo na pagdating sa kasaysayan, sa lipunan, pamamahala at kontemporaryong mga isyong panlipunan.
Totoo yan, Ray. Alam mo, nanlaki talaga yung mata ko nang makita ko kung sinong guest speaker ang nakuha ng kritika dito sa webinar natin. So, to give an overview of who our speaker is today, he finished Masters of Arts in History in the University of the Philippines, Diliman, Quezon City. He finished Bachelor of Arts History in the University of the Philippines as well, with a general weighted average of 1.7. He received Outstanding Tarlaqueño Award for 2016, a current Senior Lecturer 3 in the University of the Philippines, Diliman, and also a current columnist in the Manila Times. Ray, sino ang ating guest speaker for today ba?
Ladies and gentlemen, let us give our warmest regards to Mr. Xiao.
Makasaysayang umaga po sa ating lahat. Thank you so much for the invitation. Salamat din kay Miss Jhey Javier sa kanyang tiwala at sa lahat ng administrators and to all of you, my students. I'm looking forward to all your questions, Ray and Ossie. Pero I just warn you na, of course, as professionals in the social sciences, we do not claim to know everything. But whatever it is, just in case kung ako ay sasagot, I will make sure or I will do my best that may pinagbabatayan yung ating sagot, and if we haven't read or if I don't have an immediate answer to your question, I will tell you and I will be honest. Ganun naman dapat, di ba? Dapat we are upfront with what we know. Now, of course, I was asked about certain issues, contemporary issues, pero sabi ko, parang mas maganda siguro kung manggaling sa mga bata. Kasi I'm really not I'm not used to talking so much about current issues. I'm a historian. Okay, but what I do is that if there are hot issues around, it is our duty as social scientists to to keep abreast, meaning you have to be updated with at least the basic issues and see the historical perspective. So hindi lang basta-basta analysis ito based on the present, but hopefully there are times that I'm going to tell you that this has roots in the past, or this has parallel things that happened before where we can draw lessons from the past. Yun naman ang halaga ng kasaysayan eh. Ang kasaysayan ay hindi para sa trivia, although nakakatuwa yun, na masaya siya, it's okay, but you don't stop there. The past must be usable. Hindi totoong walang kwenta ang kasaysayan. The past is usable because number one, you will only understand the present totally because you have the past as your prism or your lens. What's happening today definitely was an effect of decisions that were made in the past by our of the people before us. But also you draw lessons. Number two, lessons from the past. No, lessons, ibig sabihin mga aral ng ano ba yung nagkamali sila, wag na nating ulitin. Ano ba yung tama sila, gayahin natin o ipagpatuloy natin. And of course, number three is that you get identity from the past. Looking at the commonalities of the Filipinos, kung titignan mo, Ossie at saka Rhea, no? We have 170 plus languages in the Philippines. So that means these are 170 different cultures. I'm not even talking about dialects. We're talking about languages and cultures. So how do you become a united nation. You draw from the past, from the common experiences that shaped us. So thank you so much sa pagkakataon na ito, and I think I am ready for your questions.
Okay, Aussie. I think we can do this. You start by we have actually opened a Google Forms search at Xiao, and we are going to read you the name of the student who asked the question. At the same time, we're going to read their question. Their
Yes,
question.
good.
So I guess we can start. Aussie, I'll start ahead and read the first question. This is a question from a student named Sean Belestrino po, and his question is our country's current government the worst in Philippine history? If not, which one is it? I'll repeat po. Is our country's current government the worst in Philippine history? If not, which one is it?
Well, I don't, although I have favorite presidents which I look as best. If you're going, before I answer the worst, we should you should see my perspective who were the best. Okay, and people might not agree, but of course I will draw first on my experience and then my experience in history. For me, my favorite presidents would be President Fidel Ramos. I already lived. I was an elementary student when he was still president, and of course, ang magaling kasi si Ramos is coalition building. Even his critics, he was able to make them his friends in Congress, and they formed an opposition admin parang hindi naman alliance, but it's really a consortium, so that they can settle their differences, and they were able to pass laws. Oh, ganun magaling si Ramos through Jose de Venecia, they formed the Rainbow Coalition. And if you're going to look at government now, that's impossible because we're so polarized. Talagang ayaw tanggapin ng isa't isa, both the Duterte people and the people in the other side. And this is not an opposition that is united. This is a fragmented opposition. Okay? But Ramos was able to, put them together, and posible pala yun. Through common respect and and seeing commonalities with each other. That's why I like Ramos. Now, of course, Ramos has his own share of controversies, but I look at that, and at that time, of course, he was able to liberalize the economy at gumandang ekonomiya natin, except that the financial crisis hit in his last year, 1997. You will be surprised with my other best president in terms of administration would be Gloria Arroyo. I did not like her. Diba? There were so much allegations of corruption. But if you're looking for a leader who's firm, decisive, fast, no, and she acts like a president, you have Gloria Arroyo. Ano lang talaga, talagang politiko lang talaga. Medyo politiko talaga. So, and then of course, Diosdado Macapagal would be another favorite. Manuel Quezon would be another favorite. He was a decisive leader. He was a visionary. He had his own faults. But if you're going to see his managerial style and his style of governance, he is also one who was able to be the foundation of our nation, for good and for bad. The foundation of the state. So, sino pa ba? Quirino is a very, very good president as an administrator. And of course, you have Magsaysay. People call me Dilawan, pero I think Corazon Aquino, I will not count them as the, best administrators. She was an inspirational president, and she made she made difficult decisions in the restoration of the democratic process. But ironically, hindi ko siya ini-include dun sa aking mga favorite administrators. So, as you see here, what I did was to see their mga pagkukulang nila, but also see their strengths. Now, ganun din sa aking pagpili ng worst government or worst administration. Was Duterte's government worse? Not in many respects. Not in many respects. Okay? Infrastructure, marami nang naipatayo. And remember that infrastructure will always be good for our economy and for the welfare of the people. Wala akong problema sa build. And remember, I'm a Duterte critic. I really do not like him. But you should give to Caesar, 'di ba? What is for Caesar? Kumbaga. You should credit him. Now, of course, you have some other things that would be good about this President Duterte would be ano nga ba tawag dito? Well, aside from the build, would be yun, yung action oriented. 'Di ba? He shows he had that, ang tawag ko doon, the theatrics of malasakit. He goes to the camps, he goes to our soldiers, he goes to malaking bagay yun eh. 'Di ba? When yung visibility. Of course, he's an old guy. He's 70 plus. You don't expect him to just go around. 'Di ba? There were reforms that happened in the Duterte administration. But my big problem with Duterte, and that's why he is one of the worst in this aspect, would be divisiveness of the country. He and his supporters, or at least his supporters, were thriving in division, in demonizing the other. And as a result, in fact, they are demonizing each other. Parang wala silang tamang ginawa pareho. And remember that I'm sorry to say that although this is a war for these two groups, that's why hindi sila nagbibigay sa isa't isa. What will happen to the Philippines? In a democracy, remember guys, that in a democracy, you should look at it as one, democracy, yes, strength in numbers. But in a democracy, you're not allowed, or you are not supposedly allowed to discriminate the losers or the minority. The power is with the majority, but you respect minority rights. You do not. And the problem with Duterte is that he is pounding the opposition, diba? And then yung red tagging and all of that. Now, is he the worst president? Diba, human rights? Pangit ang record niya. But if you're going to look at other presidents, although of course the drug war was able to kill so many people, I'm more of in the conservative estimate of probably 6,000 to 7,000 people, or less than 10,000 people, not necessarily tens of thousands as being reported. Okay, but still, you must be angry with one extrajudicial killing or one killing that is not, lawful. Even with one, you should be mad. But if you're going to look at other administrations in the past few years, even after EDSA revolution, even after Marcos, there were killings, extrajudicial political killings that were happening. Pero yung drug war talaga, kasi yung drug war kasi either pulis ang tumira or the drug lords, yung mga sumukong drug addict o drug pusher, they killed them already, yung mga drug lords at yung mga tao nila para hindi sila masumbong. Hindi lahat yan ay government killings, sponsored killings. But it was, anong tawag doon? It was encouraged, actually. It was encouraged. So, but there are cases also, in fairness to this government, that were tried. So for me, in light of that, there were aspects of the Duterte administration that are abhorrible, especially the division of the country and the human rights record. But my and the demonization of the other side, which is not healthy in a democracy. But for me, my worst is Marcos still. Marcos is still the worst. Yes, he brought us to the highest point of our economy. Yes, he built a lot of infrastructure. He sponsored culture. He had many projects that became beneficial to a lot of people. But in the end, the wound in the institutions, the mistrust that we have in government, there's so much idea that there should be centralization of government to the center and not distributing power to the locals. That's Marcosian idea. And people still think that when pag nasunugan ka, humingi ka ng tulong sa presidente. No, pag nasunugan ka, you go to the local government. Hindi ka hingi sa presidente. 'Di ba? So that's why, EDSA, even if people do not like EDSA corrected a lot of these things, like decentralized the government, the local government code made the local governments powerful. 'Di ba? So, I'm sorry if I have a long answer, but yeah, Marcos still the worst. Maybe, Carlos Garcia is good because of the Filipino First policy. But if you're going to look at it, nobody talks about Carlos Garcia. Parang walang nakakaalala sa kanya na karaniwang tao. Magsaysay is good in terms of making the people feel that they're important. I will not count him as a best administrator, but he have a big heart and good intentions for the country. And he was able to finish the Hook Rebellion. So, yeah, but Garcia is lackluster. Osmeña, just because of the time that he had so short. So maybe he's not one of my favorites, but he have a huge effect on the politics of the first 50 years of the last century, because he was with Quezon, tandem with Quezon in the politics. So yeah, Marcos for me is still the worst. Aguinaldo, I don't like him. I will count him to my least favorites as president. But in fairness to him, he was a young general at the helm of a very hard job, which is leading the Philippine Revolution. I mean, I'm sorry for the long answer, but I hope that I was able to answer the question. Duterte is not the worst, but kasi may mga gains. I mean, the way he handled the pandemic is basically what we can do because we are a third world country. We cannot demand too much from the government. We're really, because of what happened to us in the past, na ganito yung nangyari sa atin na sistema. We really, ganito na tayo, we fend for ourselves. You have to think that the government cannot help you. Let the government help those who cannot help themselves. Ikaw na lang, contribution mo na lang sa gobyerno mo na, huwag ka nang masyadong humingi sa kanila, although kung meron namang inaalok, bakit hindi, di ba? But again, you just have to understand. No? Hindi ko siya masyadong tinitira about the pandemic. I think the pandemic response was okay because kahit papaano this government believes in science, believes in the experts, and the lockdown was important in the first few months because that would give us the seriousness of this COVID-19 situation. If we did not have the lockdown, we will have so many deaths, even more than America. Alam niyo nangyari sa Amerika, 200,000 deaths under the Trump administration. Hindi naman ganun si Duterte, in fairness. In all fairness to him. And yan ang ano ko. And of course, I don't like Duterte's walang asal yung kanyang pananalita eh. I mean, lahat tayo nagmumura, lahat tayo may kahinaan, pero nilalagay natin sa lugar. Hindi mo nang pinapakita sa bata yan eh. I think nagkaroon ng bad example. But I will not judge him as he is a deplorable person. He had many good qualities. And you should look at that as well.
Thank you, Sir Chuo, for your answer. It's okay po if your answer is long. We learned a lot from what you've said po, and I think my favorite thing that you said from that was, besides looking at presidents or looking at administrations and their weaknesses, we also have to take note of their strengths as well, because it's really important that we see them as well as people And despite we might have our own preferences, it's really important na we see that in that way as well, Sir Xiao Chua. Aussie, let's proceed to the next
Ray, I'm
question.
sorry. I have to add something, Ray. I have to
Yes,
have a
po.
very important point, very short. That remember that when we are during elections, we always fight about presidents. Diba? Presidents, senators, national leaders. No, you should take a look at your local leaders. Kailangan tignan nyo yung local lead because these are the immediate people who will. Remember, even if the president is worst, if your mayor is good, you will be good. Totoo yan. If your president is good or better, if your mayor is very bad, you will have a bad time. And exhibit A would be Duterte. I mean, in all fairness to him, he was a very effective mayor. I don't like his human rights record, of course, but he was an effective mayor. Kahit sinong presidenteng maupo, si Mayor Duterte was able to make Davao, a prosperous city. Diba? So, yun ang kailangan yung makita dito, that local leaders are important. Just don't put names because they're famous. You just put names because they are good. Because if the local government people are good, even if the national are, sinto-sinto, you will be able to be okay.
Thank you, Sir Chua. Let's proceed, Aussie.
Aussie Fijini, you want to be a stewardess someday? Like Inka Magnaye? That's the peg of the narration, of the voiceover.
Thank you so much, sir. However, I want to pursue the field of journalism someday.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yes. So, moving on to the next question from Simon Bautista from grade 12 UMS Plato.
Hello,
Maga-
Simon.
Magandang araw, Prof. Xiao. Isa akong tagahanga nyo ng tropa mong Makata at musikerong si Lord de Vera. Nais kong itanong kung ano nga ba talaga ang naging dahilan kung bakit nagkaroon ng tensyon ang Beatles at ang Marcoses noong sila ay dumalaw dito sa Pilipinas noong 1966, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken.
Good.
Medyo nakakainis sapagkat kung magre-retiro na sina Maka at Ringo, I don't know if I read that correct.
Ringo, Maka, McCartney.
Okay. Ringo, sana may Asian tour sila at kasama roon ang Pinas, kaso malabo na. At follow-up question, ano ang favorite Beatles album mo?
Yung una muna, mas madaling sagutin. Abbey Road at saka yung The Beatles, also known as the White Album. These are my favorite albums. Okay? Yung Abbey Road was their last recorded album. Yung last release was Let It Be. Pero nahuli yung Abbey Road talaga na i-record. It was a masterpiece. Nandyan yung favorite song ko na Something in the way she moves attracts me like no other lover. Yan. And then of course yung thank you Simon and yung tanong kung paano nagkalabo yung mga Marcos at Imelda, simple lang ang you watch this I will just summarize it. You probably watch my documentary with Lord de Vera on the Beatles in Manila. The Marcoses told the promoter to invite the Beatles to Malacanang when they visit. The Beatles, it was not their policy to go to politicians, yung mga dinner na ganon. Hindi nila gusto yan. So, what happened was the promoter here in Manila told the manager, Brian Epstein, but the Brian Epstein did not do anything about the request. So, what happened? Ang Pinoy, ganito. Kapag hindi nag-confirm, oo. Di ba ganun ang assumption Pag hindi nagsabi ng hindi, oo yun. So, walang sagot si Epstein. In-assume ng Imelda na darating ang Beatles. So, nag-concert na sila. At of course, nainis ang Beatles kasi usually hindi na sila tinitignan sa customs. Ang Pilipino, ini-stop sila 'di ba? At gustong tignan yung mga bags sila and all of that. And of course, may jutes sila doon kaya ayaw nilang ibigay. No, nag-away-away pa nagkaroon pa ng sagutan doon. But anyway, the problem was one of the days that they were here, that was July of 1966. Remember that 1966, si Marcos was just 7 months in office. 7 months in office. Bagong presidente. So, remember, he was still very popular. Imelda Marcos was still very popular at that time. So, what happened was, when the Beatles did not show up in Malacanang for the scheduled visit because the Beatles did not know. They did not know. Wala naman tayong email nun. Wala namang... So what happened was, they went to, the presidential guards went to Manila Hotel and they were asking for the Beatles. And of course, they refused. And then of course, after that, pagkagising, I think Paul McCartney even toured Manila. They toured Manila na naka-disguise. And Paul McCartney bought a Ben Cab painting. May binili siyang Ben Cab painting. Bata pa si Ben Cab noon. Ngayon, national artist na. 'Di ba? So, yun yung makikita nyo dito na nakalabas sila. And alam mo yung napansin nila, kahit daw mga babae may mga baril dito. Yung picture si Paul McCartney na yung babae may baril They have guns in the Philippines. And ito yung isang good thing that happened during martial law. Wag nyo na lang sasabihin sa iba. Marcos confiscated the martial law regime confiscated so many private na mga walang lisensyang mga baril. Nilansag ni Marcos ang private armies. Now again, martial law is the worst. But if there's one good thing about it, it was the private armies were subdued. Ang private armies, lumitaw na lang ang marami niyan nung after EDSA. So, yan ang isang dyan. But again, when the Beatles did not come to ayun, nag-iiyak na yung there were 300 kids that were invited to meet the Beatles. Ayaw nila yung mga ganun not because they were snobs, but just because, remember, when you're famous and people get everything, they want everything from you, kailangan mo naman ng pahinga. Diba? Kailangan may private space ka. Hindi dahil suplado ang Beatles. Diba? But again, what happened was this was framed na Beatles snob first family. Nagbukas ng TV sina Ringo, sina George sa hotel, and then napanood nila na umiiyak na si Imelda Marcos, parang they let me down, ganyan. And what happened next, of course, you can watch it in the History with Lord. They were harassed in the airport. And not just harassed physically, but they took half of the money, or they took the whole money that they have, which is half of what they earned in Manila. Kinuha ng Pilipinas. So that's why John Lennon said, I will only return to the Philippines only with an H-bomb. I will never return to the Philippines. And one time, si Steve O'Neill, he's the great concert promoter, DJ Steve O'Neill, who invites all the international classic, international retro artists like the Cascades, like, yung mga, sino yung isa? Cascades. Meron pang isa na in-invite siya na sino nga ba yun? Marami siya in-invite. Pati yung na-meet ko yun Alam mo, nakapagpa-autograph ako dun sa, yung nasibak na Beatles, si Pete Best, yung unang drummer nila, yung drummer nila. Nakapagpa-autograph ako, na-meet ko yun. Pero si Paul, i-meet na niya sa office niya sa London. Si Steve O'Neill. Tapos sinabi, can I meet? Nakapag-appointment siya kay Paul McCartney. Pero nung nalamang Pilipino siya, gumawa na ng excuse. So mukhang hindi na mangyayari yung sana mangyayari pa rin, na si Ringo Starr o kaya si Paul McCartney makapunta ng Maynila. And alam mo yung nalulungkot ako bago ko i-close tong question na ito. When I was a young kid, that was in the 1990s, nung high school ako, ang Beatles may resurgence because of the Anthology Project and all of that. And kinakanta sa video okay ng mga tatay. So ako nalaman ko yung mga kanta nila. Alam mo ngayon, hindi na masyadong kilala ng mga bata ang Beatles. Sa totoo lang. They were the biggest. And they were the best. And they were the best because they played around many genres. And I invite everyone here in the Zoom meeting. Diba? Go to your Spotify. listen to any album of the Beatles. There were 13 albums and 2 compilations of singles, and there are other retrospective materials that are available. My God, I know there would be one for everyone. There would be one for rock people. There would be one for ballads people. Ang galing nila. Ang galing. They encapsulated the human spirit. And that's the best thing about the Beatles. And I hope you should listen to it. By the way, please subscribe to my YouTube. I had the Beatles special there. Awit Kasaysayan. This is the historian sings and tells the history of the songs. Video okay style. Minsan nagla-live ako. So follow me on FB and YouTube. Subscribe to YouTube and let's roll.
Thank you so much, Sir Xiao. Here on the chat box, I can see that.
By the way, Ossie, I'm sorry, but because of the Beatles incident here, that would have been a warning of what would happen to us in the Marcos years.
It was really great, sir, to, despite I don't have that much background on music, but you sharing what really happened during that time and clarifying it to us, especially for those students who are actually fans of the Beatles here, like Simon Bautista. Thank you so much, sir, in behalf of them. I can see here on the chat box that he is actually responding
Yes.
to your comments. Simon
I can see.
Bautista, are you here? Can you unmute your mic?
Simon,
Yeah, hello. Good morning po.
what's your favorite Beatles song? Which is a hard question to answer, by the way.
It's a hard question, but for me, naglalaro siya sa Abbey Road tsaka sa Rubber Soul.
No, song.
Beatles song. Ang hirap kasi Paul McCartney fan ako. Siguro Here, There, and Everywhere.
Very good, very good.
Yes.
But it's a good. Wait lang, sandali lang. I want to indulge in. You know the minor Paul McCartney songs when he was solo? Late at night when the wind is still, I'll come flying to your door.
I know that.
And you know what love is for. I'm a bluebird. Kasi may blackbird siya nung Beatles.
Nung Beatles, yeah.
Blackbird singing in the dead of night. Take these broken wings and learn to fly. A Blackbird is a song about Black Americans.
Yes.
Na humihingi ng civil rights noong 1960s.
Yes.
Hindi mo mapapansin, pero yun ang ibig sabihin. So,
yes,
they're socially aware songs against the Vietnam War, against the racism at that time, against the different, what we call this, mga social issues that were happening at that time. I'm sorry, Ossie. Thank you, Simon. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much. For those students who have questions about politics, society, and the history, you may drop them here on the Zoom chat. Ray, can we proceed to the next question?
Okay, we have a question from Villanueva Hannah Nicolette from 11 Galileo Galilei, and this is her question. Throughout history, wars and disputes between ancient civilizations and later on forming empires and dynasties have been frequent. What could be a good reason for a war to have begun besides assassinations and territorial disputes?
Oh, you know, you're talking about assassination, the assassination of Franz Ferdinand, the Archduke of in Europe, which started World War I. World War I is the most stupid war. The most stupid war. You know that the World War I happened because of the alliances. They didn't even hate each other. Just because they're allied with the enemies, with the two enemies na nagkaaway, nag-away-away na rin sila. The French did not understand why they were fighting with the Germans, for example. It was worthless. Worthless. No? But what's the reason for wars? Resources, of course. Japan started war in the Philippines, in Southeast Asia and America because of resources. They wanted to get raw materials from Southeast Asia. Okay, and they, of course, they wanted to spread Japanese culture and all of that, but it's mainly because they wanted to control the resources of Southeast Asia. So they disguised their plan as freeing Southeast Asia from the European colonizers by being the new masters of Asia. So, and of course, a lot of people in Southeast Asia bought that. The Indonesians bought that. They were welcomed in Indonesia. The liberator of Indonesia welcomed them, Ahmed Sukarno. It was only the Philippines who did not like to be under Japan. Because America, we believe that America has already promised us since the Jones Law of 1916 and the Tidings-McDuffie Law of 1935 that they are going to free us in 1945. Diba? So, America's promise is the reason why, and of course, aside from the fact that we had colonial minds because of the education, is the reason why we were friendly with America. And we still have a tumultuous relationship. It's complicated with America. We love America. I love America. But I also did not like what they have done to us. Diba? But yun na nga kahit ako, even if I'm a nationalistic guy, I consider myself a nationalistic guy, I have fondness for America. I have fondness for their history. I have fondness for their stars, for their films. Although not so much. I don't watch them in the cinema, but you know, it's there. We understand America because we are in a way molded in their image in as far as the educational system is concerned. So one way to start war is because of resources. But there are times that you wage war for good causes like World War II. Hitler was really evil. Hitler and the Axis was really evil. Evil in the sense that they were really killing people and they were occupying lands, which is against the law of self-determination. So it was the duty of America, of Britain, and of course with them was the Soviet Union. But of course the Soviet Union also became another tyrant eventually. But it was their duty to bring down Hitler and Germany at the time. It was a just war. So you have just wars, you have wars just to get, for example, the Iraq War by George Bush Jr., Dubia, that was, di ba, yung Iraq, ginera daw dahil just cause there were weapons of mass destruction and anthrax and chemical weapons that can kill thousands of people. They found nothing. And of course, it was oil that they wanted there. And of course, there's so many other examples in history. But I do hope that I was able to answer your question. Please put in the chat if I was able to answer your question. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We are waiting for the confirmation of the one who asked your question here in the chat box.
You can add. Yeah, thank you po. Yeah, good. Thank you, Hannah.
Okay, you may also okay, yes, you were able to answer clearly po according to Hannah Villanueva. Okay, so
si Diane Javier, meron bang ano? Si Jhey? May reaction ba siya? Am I doing okay here, madam?
hello, Miss Jhey.
Oh, yes daw. Thank you.
Yes, also according to Sir Ronald Balderosa, our Vice Principal for Academic Affair activity. I'm not sure. You are doing great, sir. Okay.
Thank you, sir. It's an honor to meet you.
Okay. So moving on to our next question. This is from a grade 11 student from UMS Nelson Mandela.
Wait, sorry, Ossie. Very important thing I just want to add. It's very hard to have wars this time. Because if you're going to look at America under Trump, kuripot. Si Si Xi Jinping just want to make money. You know, they're getting our islands because of that. They want to have money. Pero yung actual occupation of land or actual going to war, they do not want. Walang gustong makipaggera ngayon. So, yung most of the conflicts are small in today's world are yung mga small scale conflicts lang, not necessarily wars, shooting wars. So, and of course, the superpowers, America in many ways is and China of course as a challenger are the superpowers now, but they're not as as hot as the Soviet Union and the United States during the time of the Cold War. I mean, ironically, it's a Cold War. There was no shooting war, but it was tense and hot, and it was really contested. And of course, we all know that the Red Scare and the hatred for the Red by the military was basically rooted in that, diba? Yung McCarthyism during the Cold War, or the anti-Filipino, so supposedly anti-Filipinos, communists that people were red tagging at that time. Red tagging started in the 1950s, diba? 1940s, 1950s. Oh wait, is it true that in previous years the US starts war because it is profitable for them? It's profitable because war is they have a war economy. Kasi when they use their bullets, when they use their weaponry, their yung ang tawag doon ni Dwight Eisenhower, president, who was a general at that time, but he warned against this, the military-industrial complex. Because the military-industrial complex, nagsama yung business saka yung generals, they create wars so that they will have profit. Diba? And that's the reason why some people said people in the military, sabi nila, do not like JFK. Because John F. Kennedy always resorted to peaceful means, to diplomacy. Diba? So, but of course, that's a speculation, and I do not want to dwell on that. Thank you, Sir Balderosa. Well, of course, sorry, even this war in the Philippines was in many ways profit-driven. Because when you the Philippines is the center of Southeast Asia, and when you have the Philippines, you have a base on China. That's always the case. Even the Spaniards conquered the Philippines because we have a base on China. You see, so China is even before this is really the crown jewel of Asia. Ossie Figini, I'm sorry, I keep on interrupting you. Ossie Figini.
It's okay po, sir. Correction po, Sir Ronald Valderosa is actually our Vice Principal for Student Affairs. So thank you, Sir Ronald. Moving on to our next question. Again, this is from a grade 11 student from UMS Nelson Mandela. I'm one of avid supporter po ng ating Pangulo. Gusto ko po lamang itanong yung patungkol po sa pagtanggal o direktiba ni Mayor Isko Moreno sa pagtatanggal ng mga tarpaulins sa lungsod ng Maynila. Tama po ba yung desisyon ni Yorme na tanggalin po yung tarpaulin sa lungsod? Kasi po ang main objective po niya ay for beautification and cleanliness po.
Well, ganito, no? I haven't been to Manila for quite some time. But na very long, so hindi ko napapansin if there are no more remember, dyan sa may Sampaloc may tarpaulin queen dyan eh. Alam mo yon, lumaki na ako at talaga alam mo yung mukha niya makikita mo sa Sampaloc eh. Is that good? I mean, you inform people that you inform people that you have projects, yes, but wag naman namang, you don't impose your face in every lamppost. So I agree with that eh. Okay, what did Duterte say? Wag kayong maglagay ng picture ko. Hindi naman napigilan kasi marami pa rin naglalagay ng picture niya. Pero sinabi niya, wag presidente ilagay nyo, mga bayani ang ilagay nyo. Tama yun eh. Oh, ba't mo naman i-impose sa akin yung mukha mo, politiko ka? Bakit hindi yung mga bayani? Diba? But of course, there's a balance there. People should be able to know that you have projects. Pero may social media na ngayon eh. You don't need those tarpaulin. Gastos pa yan eh. So I agree with the mayor's decision as long as he doesn't put his face. Kasi ang problema naman, baka naman pinatanggalin yung sa kanya pwede. But of course, there are times that I don't agree with Mayor Isko, but in general, I think he's fine. His heart is in the right place, and he actually knows me. I cannot believe it, that he remembers me. But yeah, he remembers me as they. Minsan nasa-shoutout pa ako dun sa kanyang Friday program. I don't, sometimes kung masyado siyang dumidikit kay Duterte o nag-aagaway kay Duterte, hindi ko masyadong gusto. But there are times when he have independent mind. And his love for culture, no? He beautified yung beautification kasi important. That's not small thing, ah. At saka yung walang masyadong heritage buildings na nasisira. Walang masyadong heritage issues kasi yung mga ibang heritage issues minana na lang niya eh. Pero wala siyang parang ayaw niyang gibain yung mga ganito, no? So ako, I support him with his cultural initiatives especially.
Thank you, Sir Chua. That was a question po from, we have a next question po from Albert Einstein.
Sorry,
And,
Kariaga. Wait
yes
lang
po.
Ray, baka hindi ko nasagot to. Galilei Villanueva. Sa Villanueva, Hannah said, UN does not allow wars if I can recall correctly. Ganito. I'm not sure. I'm not an international law expert. I'm not an expert on the UN. Pero I think I will answer it this way, that the UN's function, even without police powers, the UN cannot impose anything. You cannot allow war. UN cannot impose it. Walang police power ang United Nations. But the power of United Nations is this. Yes, we are all sovereign states. But if you have United Nations, at least people are talking. Kasi it's good that people are talking than when they are not talking with each other. Okay? So, some people say UN is useless. No. There are sovereign states. You cannot really impose on them. But because of UN, they are still talking. They have common agenda, like, end poverty, or end, the mitigation of climate change, or even the pandemic was helped, but because of the coordination of the United Nations World Health Organization. Diba? Mayroong coordinated pandemic response in the making of vaccines, or whatever, setting the standard for health protocols, which was agreed upon by many people because they are scientific. Diba? I hope I answered your question. Yan ang I'm very sorry if I cannot really say for certain if they allow. But they cannot really allow anything because they have no police powers. But they cannot even enforce the arbitral ruling of the independent international tribunal on the West Philippine Sea. They cannot impose it kasi wala namang police power. So they said we were right, but we cannot because China is strong. That's the reality of it. And might makes right in international diplomacy.
Yes, sir. Thank you again. I think Hannah is thanking you herself po sa chat box natin. Yes, thank you, sir, according to her po. We proceed po to the next question from Albert Einstein. His question po is, did Emilio Aguinaldo really devise General Luna's murder? Or did he at least have something to do with it? Yun po yung question niya.
That's an unknowable question, but what my opinion is, based on what I've read, is that Emilio Aguinaldo had prescience of what his men will do to Luna. Not necessarily was behind it, but the at least he had. Kasi remember, you can say whatever you want from you can say whatever you want to Aguinaldo, but Aguinaldo actually admitted to ordering Bonifacio's death. So I do not see any reason why he will not deny. But he denied. He denied a lot of times. And in fact, Felipe Buencamino bore a lot of responsibility. Like, he said that we planned it. Basically because Luna was, well, I have to make sure about that, no? He probably did not. He probably implied it, not really admitted it. But Boy Camino gave an interview that says Luna was an ass. I mean, in effect, Luna was an asshole. You have to be killed. He gave an interview to the Philippine Commission. So I guess that answered it. He probably had some prescience or pre-knowledge, but he was not behind it.
Thank you again, Sir Chua. Ossie, we may now proceed to the next question.
Osti Figini.
Yes. Well, moving on to the next question. This is from Diana of Pasco.
And in the debt situation of the country. But what I can tell you is that Fidel V. Ramos, during his time, was able to pay so many of our debts. May record siya na ganyan na meron tayong debt package na sinarado. So, remember that even today, when you are saying that Duterte is borrowing from China to jumpstart the build process, those debts are debts that we can pay naman eh. Remember that we always look at the Philippines as a small country. We are not a small country. We have a medium-sized economy. Hindi tayo, and we're, I mean, yes, you can see a lot of poor people, but we're not that poor. We're not that poor. So, and yung utang ay kung may pupuntahan, of course, there's so much corruption that's happening, and I think COA naman is maigpit, but yung mga maliliit, yun ang napaparusahan, yung mga malalaki, yun ang napapalusot. But if you see that the debts are going to where they should be, like infrastructure will always be good. Again, that would be beneficial. And as long as yun na nga we do not know when kasi remember that supposedly, and ang daming walang trabaho, di ba? Ang daming nawalan ngayong pandemic. Pero if you're going to look at it, the purchasing power ng marami, middle class. Di ba? Dami-daming bumibili online. So, the economy is okay still despite the pandemic. Well, of course, it's always a problem. It's a perennial problem that it doesn't go down to the poorest. That's why they needed help. Di ba? Pero yung middle class, they're more or less okay. I'm sorry, although I cannot really elaborate on the economy because economics is my weakness. I understand the basics, I understand, but I don't have so much kumbaga insight about it.
Thank you so much, Sir Xiao, for your answer. Ray, I think we have a question in the chat box.
Yes, we have a question po from 11 Mandela, Ebeo Jeff. I think this has something to do with what you said a while ago po. Kung magiging 100% FDI po ba tayo, mas magiging madali pagbayad ng debts?
100% FDI, which is like foreign direct investment. Ito yung nakikita natin dito. Which is because we have a constitutional provision about the 60-40. 60 dapat 40% I think is owned by Filipinos and 60 foreign ownership. Na the FDI, foreign direct investment, means that you should make it 100%. Ganito, hati ako dyan I have no opinion. You know why? Because I believe that Filipinos should control the industries in this country. Diba? Diba? Nagrereklamo nga tayo sa China tapos gusto nyo pa 100% direct ownership. Pero may problem. Alam din naman natin na direct owners pa rin naman sila. Dahil dami lang naman yung mga Pinoy na nilalagay nila doon. Pero ito yung sinasabi ko. At least may Pinoy. Kung walang Pinoy. Di ba kaya nga natatakot ako doon sa mga Chino Yung mga kumpanya na pupunta dito. They don't even get workers na Pilipino. Bakit? May language barrier eh. O nasa construction work kayo tapos mga Pinoy ang mga nagtatrabaho tapos sino ang boss, hindi nagkaintindihan yun. Oh. So, I don't know. I mean, we have to keep our jobs. Filipinos should be working in these companies even if they're international ones. So how do we, if there's no Filipino ownership, how do we secure that? There should be government regulations that would be passed. Diba? So, hati pa ako dyan. I do believe that foreign investments are important to our country, and that's why FBR was a great president because he was able to bring a lot of foreign investments in the Philippines. But I think that the Filipino ownership, the 40% Filipino ownership, gives us a sense of at least merong Filipino intervention in the running of the businesses. But really, I mean, I'm not sure if I want a 100% ownership.
Thank you po, sir. We proceed po sa question from the Google form again. This time it's from Pascal, from 11 Humes Nelson Mandela. And her question is, what are your thoughts and opinions of the former President Emilio Aguinaldo being portrayed in classical indie movies in comparison to the actual history?
Well, remember that all films are fiction. All historical films are fiction. You watch The Crown, there's so much fiction there. All films are interpreted. If you want real history, you read the book. You read the dissertation. Do not watch a film. You watch a film to be entertained, but also to get a grasp of what happened, but not the whole thing, because it's really fictional. You have to be critical about it. You have to counter check, like we, the Crown fans. We watch Crown in the Netflix. I'm a royal watcher. I have so many books here about the royal family. But you have the internet now, and the royal historians like Hugo Vickers or Robert Lacey, they give their take on the fictions in the Crown and what really happened. So it's quite kind of exciting. So when you watch the films, and just a disclaimer, we promoted the film General Luna and Goyo. I always am with Gerald Tarog, and because my take on it here is it's art. You get the sense of history, yes. So my take on Emilio Aguinaldo is that was he portrayed in a bad light? Yes, if you think that Luna was totally correct. But Luna, despite being a Philippine hero, is also an asshole. I'm sorry for the term. This is a Catholic school. But, he was. I will not be surprised why his enemies killed him. I'm not saying that it was justified. Diba? But again, was he so evil in the film? He was just silent in the film. Diba? They did not even directly say that he was involved in the killing of Luna. So I think they were fair. Of course, if you're pro Aguinaldo, you will not like it. You want Aguinaldo to be like, all positive, like the film of Meili, which is basically based on the memoirs of Emilio Aguinaldo. It was accurate based on the memoirs of Emilio Aguinaldo, which is, of course, all sources of history are biased. We cannot do anything about that. So, in looking at these films, you have to really look at the perspective. What perspective was it taking? And the General Luna and Goyo, for me, Game of Thrones. I look at them. The Game of Thrones, they are all like evil and they all have interests and they all have good points. Diba? Because that's the complexity of of humanity. Diba? They have good points, they have bad points, they all have interests, and your kontrabida is another one's bida. You see? And whatever you think of the film is really based on what you really believe. There's nothing really objective about it. So I hope I answered your question.
Thank you, sir. Aussie, may we now proceed? Oh, sorry. We have a question again po from Sir Ronald. Sir, do you think switching to federalism would be more beneficial to our country?
No. No, no, no. You know why? Simple. The local governments today, if they know how to use their powers in the local government code, they have already like mini mini federalism. You know why? When I was involved in the Torre de Manila case, Torre de Manila, the national photo bomber of the Rizal Monument, as the spokesperson of the case of the Knights of Rizal against Torre de Manila, I realized how even senators like Pia Cayetano, even the NHCP, the national agencies under the president, even the National Commission on Culture and the Arts, they are so careful not to tread the line of local autonomy. They cannot just order the mayor to stop this or do this because there is local autonomy. The local autonomy is able to make you to make the resources of the government work for you if your mayor is good. But most of them are not most, I'm sorry, but a lot of them are not really good. So, ito yung problem mo ngayon. Ito yung problem mo ngayon. Because we haven't matured in the local governments, then you need the national government to at least monitor these things. Now, I have a question. If we shift to federal system, there would be, I think, 5 regions. Bakit pinababayaan kami ng Manila? That's not true. You were betrayed by your own leaders in your provinces. Sila yung nagpayaman, sila yung gumawa ng private army. Yun. I guess I hope that I'm able to elaborate that in a very simple way.
Thank you for that, Sir Xiao. As a UM student, we really can't help it, but there is this desire in our heart while you're explaining that, and it's timely because it was also our topic for the past few months. Moving on to the next question. This is from Shane Gadingan of Euclid. In your opinion, do you think that Jose Rizal deserves to be called as our national hero?
There's no official national hero. There's no law that says that Jose Rizal is the national hero. So I think the question, the important question is, why is he a national hero? It's because the people want him to be national hero. And because the people also want Andres Bonifacio as their national hero, then there are 2 national heroes. And Mabini is a national hero, and Marcelo del Pilar is a national hero, Antonio Luna is a national hero. We have many national heroes. That's a perspective now of historians. Diba? Of course, Rizal is the mascot of them all, because we want to make Rizal is like the guy who will be loved even by foreigners. But for me, Andres Bonifacio is the father of this nation. He connected more to the people. That's why they were able to fight in the KKK. Not Ku Klux Klan, okay? Katipunan ng mga anak ng bayan. Kataas-taasan, kigalang-galang na katipunan ng mga anak ng bayan. Like Ossie Figini. So, I'm joking. Okay, now, I would like to, ano nga bang point yung kukunin? Yeah. What's your question again? Ray? What was the question? Sorry,
Yes
Easy.
po.
Jose Rizal.
National hero.
Okay. So, it's so useless to debate on this. All these heroes have their weaknesses and all these heroes have their contribution. Again, it's more beneficial for us to take the lessons from them, not really debating who's the greater. Alam mo, ang pangit din ng discourse ngayon na sino ang bayani, sino ang hindi eh. Kasi, who can tell? Who can tell? The heroes now that we have are sanctified by history. Diba? Si Ninoy Aquino nga, sanctified by history, tinatanggal na ng mga tao eh. I mean, I'm sad about that because I like Ninoy very much. Ninoy is my hero. Oh? But what if the people do not want him to become a hero anymore? We do not know. Diba? No law should be passed declaring heroes. Because if you can declare heroes, then any Tom, Dick, and Harry can become a hero if they have enough numbers in Congress. Diba? Now, I want to answer the question about and there should be no law declaring national heroes. I disagree. The state cannot impose heroism. It is the people who should decide, should choose their heroes. Yeah, so the Americans did not declare him a national hero. They encouraged the cult of national hero, but they just rode on his popularity because Emilio Aguinaldo and the revolutionary government, even for the Americans, already made Rizal a national hero. I'm sorry to say. Diba? They already considered, not really made, considered him a national hero. There is, yeah, do you agree? Yan. Paano po kung maging parliamentary tayo, sabi ni Ebeo? Mas madali po bang i-monitor ng LGUs at mas magiging madali po maalis ang corrupt politicians? Okay. My question here is this. Do you trust your congressmen enough to elect your leaders, the national leaders, their prime minister? Do you trust your congressmen to do that for you? I mean, we're not a party. We all know that the party system here is bullshit. It's really personalities. I will not, I don't like Duterte, but at least I trust Duterte because he is selected by most of the voters. Yan ang demokrasya sa atin. You're a loser, you accept the winner. I mean, imagine how many leadership changes just because magkaroon lang ng politika. At least, when you have a mandate from the people, kasi ganun yun eh, to mature as a democracy, we should suffer from deciding if we elected bad leaders. We should suffer. Diba? To learn the lesson next time that you do not choose them. Hindi yung parang, kasi hindi nga gawa, yung halimbawa, yung removal, prime minister, remove mo. Oh. Kung may party system tayo na totoo, na may mga issues talaga, pwede yun. Again, in an immature democracy, parliamentary system, I think, is not a very good system. Mas madali bang i-monitor ang LGUs? I don't know the correlation with parliamentary and the LGUs. Hindi ko parang hindi ko nakikita yung connection kung magiging beneficial talaga. It's like just giving, ganito yan. If I run for president, and if I want to win, I have to bribe everyone. I have to buy votes from everyone. Little people. You know, when you have a parliamentary system with this corrupt mindset, it's easier for corrupt people to be leader of this country because you can only pay a few people and you will become prime minister. So, mas gusto ko pa rin yung binoto ng tao kahit na of the president o kaya by my people. In a direct voting. So I think that for me is very important for me to choose my president, or at least my people choosing our president. And I hope I made sense.
Thank you, sir. Currently, we have a lot of questions and comments here in our chat box. There is a question from Herrera of 12 Pascal. Sir, do you agree that because of the American industries here in our country, makes our country dependent on it and not really free?
Definitely. Definitely. It started in the American period. Di ba? Okay, Aussie, first day in school, you're taught the alphabet, right? Please
Yes,
open your mic.
sir.
A is for,
Apple.
may apple ba sa Pilipinas na tinatanim dito?
Uh,
Wala. Walang mansanas na tinatanim sa Pilipinas. So ano? A is for apple, di lahat ng bata naganap ng apple. Di ba? So the education system, ganun kasimple, very subtle. You look at the books. I recently ordered the book. Naitago ko na. I recently ordered the book of what Philippine readers in high school, for high school. I think it was a book in the 1930s. May Filipino stories, yes, pero ang daming American stories. So, you know, that America is like the savior of the world and all of that, ay nandoon. So not just the industries, but you know, the infiltration in the culture. That's what Renato Constantino said as the miseducation of the Filipinos. Yes, the Americans educated us, but what kind of education did they teach? Yes, we can read English. Now we love English. Now the school is talking in English. But pagdating ng panahon, do you even know how to communicate with the real people? The one that you should be serving? Diba? Huwag niyong pababayaan ng Filipino ninyo. Filipino pa rin ang wika natin, pambansang wika. At kung may mga local languages kayo, gamitin niyo, pakisabihan ang mga tao, kausapin niyo sa wika ninyo. Okay? But yes, of course, lahat, McDonald's, di ba? Globalization, the globalized world. Globalization's goal is to make one culture so that the superpower, di ba? Okay sana yung one culture, one consumer culture, if all have a fair share. But of course, that will be controlled by the superpower. Di ba? Kaya may McDonald's tayo, di ba? Kenny Rogers, sarap na sarap naman tayo. Hindi naman natin maboycott yan. Dairy Queen, hindi naman natin maboycott yan. Oh. Di labas natin Jollibee natin. Oh. So, yun lang naman.
Thank you so much po ulit, Sir Xiao. I think everyone is really enjoying po our talk since the chat box is really they're really sharing their thoughts po sa chat box. So I'll proceed po sa next question natin from 11 Hughes Nelson Mandela. Ang question po niya is, totoo po ba yung dayaan na nangyari sa Tejeros Convention?
I do not know because we were not there and there's no evidence. Pero we have we know in historical accounts that it was Diego Mojica who told Andres Bonifacio that the ballots were sobra than the people. So yun yung that's the reason why they said, but you know, can you go back in time and you know count the ballots and the people? That we really cannot know. But the important thing here is meron na talagang angas-angasan. At least that's how far you can go. Angas-angasan ng election, ng kadayaan sa election. In our very first election that created the nation.
Thank you po, sir. Aussie, let's proceed.
Okay, I have a question from Sir P. Prof. Xiao, how will the Biden presidency impact U.S.-Philippines security relations? Thank you.
Well, not much will change. Not much will change in a Trump and a Biden. Ang difference lang with Biden, kasi ganito yan eh. Ang difference lang with Biden is he will probably talk about human rights. Kasi mga Democrats yan eh. And they do not like, you know, Hillary Clinton did not appreciate Duterte, di ba? Oh. Si Obama, ganun din. Parang ang tingin ni Duterte sa kanila, pakialamero sila. Pero will it change our relationship with America? You know that Duterte's bad-mouthing America did not even change our relationship with America. Because presidents come and go, but the country's relationship endures. Pero there's one thing about America that is kind of bad. Do not trust America for your security. do not trust America. Why? Simple. Noong World War II, di ba iniwan nila tayo? They decided when we were battling in Bataan, they decided for war plan Orange 3, which would leave the Philippines because they have to fight. They would leave the Philippines. They will be. Thank you, ma'am.